love space. So, I'm not saying, to kill any space programs or NASA or anything, don't get me wrong. But I do think that we should be thinking about how we prioritize some of these funds.
It started here, killing the next Mars probe. You heard it first on the stream.
Are you,
Awesome.
well, maybe, is it Elon Musk? Is he listening, do you think? Maybe to the stream? Let's hope so. Welcome to The Stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation with guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg, an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarni, a water strategy consultant, doing my part to solve wicked water problems. And I might add, really advancing Hawaiian shirt styles with Tom.
We're going to come on to those Hawaiian shirts expectedly. But for people listening, today we are thrilled to be joined by Richael Young, who's a co-founder and CEO of Mammoth Water in the US. And we're going to be talking all about water in agriculture, the trading of water, and water rights through smart markets. So Richael, come in. Great to see you and welcome to the stream.
Oh, it's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So we're going to quickly just, Will, Hawaiian shirts. We've got to get it out of the way.
We got to get this out of the way.
Let's just get the shirt stuff out of the way. So this is a new one again, right? It's become a habit.
It is a new one again. I want to say that I'm probably on the verge of looking for alternative income to supplement my shirt collection. But yeah, what the heck? It's, I'm locked in the house. I need a good laugh most of the days, and it's summer in Denver. So
I love it. So any shirt companies willing to send in free samples, not that it's I was going to say pay per play, but wear per play, but no, we're not going to go down that route, right?
Well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes between now and our next episode. And Tom, I love the pineapple motif in your shirt.
Well, Will, you may joke, but I went shopping. I saw that a lot of people were commenting about, hey, nice shirt. Well, I felt like I had to up my shirt game. So, but I also wanted a shirt that I could actually wear out to dinner or wear around town that wasn't too flamboyant. Not that I'm saying yours are.
I think that's what you're implying, Tom.
No, not
really.
Anyway, poor Richael. Look at that. We need to crack on. So,
I mean,
all right, let's move on.
I'm a little upset that y'all haven't commented on what I'm wearing yet, because I'll say that I definitely wore a vest to spruce up the fact that I'm just wearing a t-shirt on your show. I have never felt, I have never had to think so much about what to wear to a podcast. I think you might be the only podcast that your guests have to think about what to wear. But I will add that my t-shirt is actually pretty spectacular. It is a map of Nebraska rivers, and it turns out that Nebraska has the most river miles of any state in the United States, more than California, more than Texas.
Wow, I think you've totally outdone me and Will there. That's
absolutely.
First.
I'm not often speechless, Richael, but I am now. That's quite the fact.
There's an educational, factual reason behind the choice of clothing, whereas I just thought, it's got pineapples, it looks good, I'll buy it.
on a podcast about food, energy, water, I think it was a pretty good choice.
Thank you.
I love it.
So we're gonna crack on. So I mean, where to start? I mean, we're going to kind of get into the discussion about agriculture, water demands, and water trading into more detail. But to kind of get started, and a question we normally ask people is kind of why water. But I think for you, Richael, it should be kind of why Mammoth? Why the choice of name to start? There must be a story behind that.
Yeah. Well, please, Will, go ahead.
And Richael, how many M's in Mammoth?
3, which I have had to correct you on one occasion.
I never said I could spell.
So Mammoth Water, we in naming the company, my co-founder and I, my co-founder is Nick Brasbich, and he was my graduate research advisor as I was going through grad school. But we came up, decided that we were going to start this company, and we were trying to think about what we would name this thing. And it turns out that a couple of economists are not very creative at naming companies. And so there was a long list of very, very bad names that sort of came to mind. And eventually Nick, who is a geologist by training as well, started looking up state fossils of states that were meaningful to us. So we were at the time at the University of Illinois, and turns out that the state of Illinois has a very uncharismatic fossil called the Tully Monster. While Tully Monster trading has a nice ring to it, it just was not a really good mascot. So we were looking at other states with great, that had significance to us. And Nebraska was really where we got started with doing water trading and water markets. And so we named ourselves after Nebraska's state fossil, the woolly mammoth.
Very cool. Love the story. And actually, for people watching, although listening, they won't be able to take part in this, there is the company mascot of a mammoth hidden in Rachelle's background somewhere. So all of you who can see it and point it out, please do so. But so great stuff on the company origin and the story. But in terms of the need for kind of the software solution that you provide, how did this come about? Because this is an absolutely enormous challenge. And when you think about how much water agriculture uses in terms of 70% of global supplies, it's, monumental compared to household supplies. So kind of where did you see the gap for the solution you provided?
Yeah, I would say that, first of all, I got tricked into starting a company. This was not on the 5-year plan of Richael Young when we had started this company. And so what actually had happened was that I was in graduate school at the time, working specifically on groundwater trading. So there are places within the United States where you can transfer groundwater permits. But the ways in which that happens are really complicated. And so we were sort of modeling that just from a research perspective and looking at different market designs and how you could meet environmental objectives through groundwater trading and through these kinds of programs. And one day, my research advisor had emailed me asking if I wanted to participate in a program with the National Science Foundation that was basically looking at, could we commercialize the research that we were working on? And sounded like a fun opportunity to me. And I was really, amazed that my research advisor would ask me to help take part in that program. And so of course I said, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to do it. And he replied back and said, this was on a Friday, and he said, great, the interview's on Monday, you have 3 days, here's the background materials, the interview panel will be asking you most of the questions on Monday. And so then all of a sudden I found myself in this position where it wasn't my research advisor that was doing most of the talking, which is all of academia, right? Grad students are there to just kind of support the principal investigator or the primary researcher. But all of a sudden it was me that was really put on the spot. And we went through this program and it was great because it does push grad students at the very forefront. And, it was, we had to go out and interview 100 customers over 8 weeks. It turns out that interviewing 100 farmers is a lot, there was a lot more miles that we spent on roads less traveled in rural America going door to door, which was frankly, mile to mile to get to the next house. Talking to people in their homes and shops and, several times just in their trucks as they were heading from one place to the next. And it was a great experience. And we found that we did in fact have a great commercial opportunity to start water markets, that there were very high transaction costs associated with groundwater trading because it was so complicated. And it's necessarily complicated, right? The hydrology of how groundwater moves and how it affects adjacent surface water is a complex science. And so you can't just let anybody trade groundwater with anybody. You have to be really thoughtful about what the hydrologic impacts are of those water trades. And so, while there are rules and regulations that are designed around groundwater trading, when you actually have to go through them manually to check, is a seller eligible to trade with a buyer, that process can take hours and hours and a lot of legal and professional expertise as well. So that makes it really expensive to trade water. And ultimately what that means is that it prices out smaller water trades and smaller water users from being able to participate. And so what we really wanted to do was level the playing field by increase access and equity of water markets by lowering these transactions costs. And so what we do is, and where we really got started with this company was developing smart markets, where we take all of those really complicated rules and regulations around groundwater transfers and turn them into computer algorithms that can very quickly, in seconds, be able to sort through who is eligible to trade with whom, and be able to make it much, much simpler, both on the groundwater users and on the regulators in securing water trades.
Will, any kind of thoughts? I mean, incredible story, and I think you're saying you're leveling the playing field in a market that's over-regulated. It needs to be over-regulated, and matching buyers with sellers. And what I think is really interesting is you're bringing in that software, that high-tech angle, where in some of your previous videos you said areas where you're dealing with customers perhaps who may not even have email addresses. So I think connecting the two is really interesting here. But Will, what are your thoughts?
About Hawaiian shirts, or?
No, we've moved on.
Oh, okay. No, only kidding. I think what Rochelle does is much needed. I mean, we've got no shortage of regulations in the U.S. in terms of, quality primarily and quantity, but we don't really have markets to trade allocations of water. And, I'd say that in most watersheds, the water is over allocated and poorly governed. So, how do you bring in tools that facilitate trading that make a lot more sense than, basically use it or lose it? And the American West is just, in dire straits in terms of how to manage a finite resource that is poorly governed, over allocated, and increasingly stressed due to the impacts of climate change. So I'm a huge fan of market-based solutions that facilitate better use of, a gallon or a liter of water. So I think it's desperately needed. I'd like to see more of it, and I'd like to see it really impact public policy. I mean, another thing I like about what Rochelle is doing with Mammoth Water, with 3 M's, by the way, is that, it plays within the regulatory framework, but it also pushes the regulatory framework, at least in my mind. And Rochelle, I'd be interested in your take, but innovation in public policy is also desperately needed. So have you seen the regulators say, oh, this is really a good idea, maybe we should think differently about what we're doing?
Yeah, most certainly. And, a lot of our consulting work is based around exactly that, is helping folks to reimagine how water trading works. Because, a lot of folks think that water markets are new, that there's this innovative, sexy tool, but frankly, they've been around for a long, long time, for hundreds of years. And in Oman, even 1,000 years or more. And so, they've been around for a long time. They're just often informal and decentralized. And, folks are calling up friends and neighbors to see who is trading water. They'll, my favorite has been that they use the electronic bulletin board of Craigslist to identify who is buying and selling water. And so the point is, though, how we can modernize this into a more efficient process. And increasingly, regulators are more interested in how they might support more efficient markets. One of the main issues that we have around scaling water markets is that many of the many of the market rules and regulations that are in place today don't lend themselves to automation. So in the state of Washington, for example, in the Yakima Basin, there's a very large culture of water trading, and water markets have been part of the Yakima Basin Integrated Plan for years. The problem is that the Department of Ecology takes a case-by-case evaluation of each water transfer. In Colorado, we have water courts. Water courts and case-by-case evaluations do not lend themselves to automation by computer algorithms. And so the point is, how can, if folks start to understand how much time, energy, resources that process waste, can we instead think about how can we start to codify these rules and regulations in a way that we can start automating them, and how do we also deal with the potential risks of when maybe some of those rules may be a little bit off, or there are ways for us to hedge those risks. And so that's a lot of the work that we do on the consulting end, is helping folks to reimagine how we might redesign these water markets.
So, Rochelle, what's the biggest barrier? I mean, it strikes me that you compete against the status quo. Is it, as they say, water buffaloes that like it the way it is and have absolutely no intention of changing?
No, I think that, I think that there are a handful of folks that are like that, and who are very happy with the status quo. In general, I think that there is an appetite for improvement, and so we do see big changes being made in the last 10 years, and so I think what honestly the bigger problem is, and you touched on this, Will, is governance. We have a huge water data management problem, and when it even comes to water transfers, largely the biggest hurdle of a water transfer can be just proving up your water right, quantifying how much water you have, because there's the difference between how much water you have on paper, how much your water right says you have, versus how much you consumptively use or how much you regularly use. And so that when there's a difference in those amounts and you've got to prove it up through historical records, et cetera, that's a big burden on water users. And so, this is another area where Mammoth is really working, is being able to help folks be able to track their water use, over time, to be able to understand, okay, how much water do I have in my water right? How much is my allocation? How much water have I used relative to my allocation? Can I make sure that I'm not going to go over that? And so we're really helping to provide high density and high resolution of water data in a way that's never been had before. And my co-founder at one time when I was in school had mentioned something about how we have higher resolution data on the surface of Mars than we do about water use in this country. It's just stupid. So what we're trying to do is really help people to be collecting their data, collecting it more regularly, understanding their water data, understanding the performance of their water use, and be able to address gaps as well.
So is this about valuing water more on Mars than in the US or on Earth? Is that what it comes down to?
I think we've got this we've got this fascination and we romanticize outer space, but have not checked reality on, should we actually be spending some money on our natural resources here on this planet that supports us? So I think that, we just need to be thinking about how we actually want to be good stewards of, the resources we have and where we want to be spending that. And I love space. So, I'm not saying, to kill any space programs or NASA or anything, don't get me wrong. But I do think that we should be thinking about how we prioritize some of these funds.
It started here, killing the next Mars probe. You heard it first on the screen.
Are you, well,
Awesome.
maybe,
Don't blame me for that.
is it Elon Musk? Is he listening, do you think? Maybe to the
Oh,
stream? Let's hope so. But coming back, does it, because one of our first guests, Katrina Donaghy, the CEO of Civic Ledger from Australia, we talked about water trading from a governance level, but how the use of blockchain technology is being used to ensure the accuracy and the security of that data, so that when it's changed, you know that it hasn't been altered in any way. Does that come into this as well in terms of your system, so that when buyers and sellers are trading water, not only the price to make sure it's even, and like you say, the even playing field, but also the security of that data is truly accurate as well? Does that play a part in what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely it does. Being able to, you know, track water rights, who has ownership of it. I mean, when you're doing a permanent water rights transfer in the US, you do have to do a title search. And so that's another expensive transaction cost associated with water trades. If you're able to just look it up on the blockchain, that reduces some of the costs. Still, some of the biggest issues around water trading are more about verifying that once you've transferred the water right, either on a lease basis or on a permanent basis from seller to buyer, that the amounts used are still in accordance with that agreement. So you can still run into these issues. Even if you implement blockchain, one of the issues is, well, did the seller stop using that quantity of water over the duration of the agreement? Did the buyer not use more or divert more than was allowed in the agreement? And so this issue of monitoring and enforcement, to me, is the biggest issue around water management and water transfers. And, you know, a lot of people get kind of worked up about the idea of monitoring and enforcement and sort of better, you know, doing a better job around that. But that's an area where I really push back, because I just think if we didn't have monitoring and enforcement of our property rights, it would be utter chaos. And so just like, if someone tries to encroach on my apartment, my land, my home, whatever it is, they try to steal my car, and I then, say, hey, I need to reclaim my property here. There needs to be a similar system around water rights enforcement. And this is really about, securing property rights in water. And so I think this is, this is an opportunity for us to really flip the narrative, so that it's not about more regulation, but it's really about securing property rights and making sure that people get access to what they have on paper.
I think that's a interesting and potentially powerful way to frame it. And I'm always struck by how much pushback there is on reporting of data. I think California is an interesting example. Up until just a few years ago, the ag sector did not have to report groundwater levels, which, I started my career as a hydrogeologist. I find that beyond appalling, frankly. It's, it gets to your point of, you really can't be a steward of a finite resource if you don't know what you have and how you're using it or abusing it.
Right. I mean, here's the thing is, we've just given, Tom, you touched on this point that agriculture uses 70+% of our annual water budget. And we have just given agriculture and our growers this impossible job to be better stewards of their water, but with no tools to actually enact or to execute on that. And so this is where I think we could be doing a much better job, is, giving them better tools and better understanding in their water use.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think you've clearly come up with a solution to a challenge that exists, rather than inventing a widget and then trying to sell it to someone that says, actually, this is, we don't need this particular innovation. From that work as a student and interviewing those farmers. But why do you think there is a gap in the market? Why hasn't this been covered or invented before? Why do you think that now's the right time? It's kind of just interesting that the Mammoth is filling a gap that's needed. But why has nobody done this before?
Well, I think that the water sector is really hard. A lot of people have tried it before and come at it with different areas of expertise, but largely not in water. So, you know, we've seen GIS experts and we've seen, you know, tech experts and stuff like that who've come into this space, but without a real understanding of water institutions. And I think that you can really fail when you don't understand the complexity of these institutions and of allocation design. You know, we like to talk about water markets or allocations as if they're all the same and they're built off of a single model. But the fact of the matter is, these are highly complex and nuanced institutions. And so when you think about, you know, let's set aside markets because markets are so incredibly complicated. You know, so let's just set those aside for now. If we just think about allocations, you can have single year allocations, multi-year allocations, you can have carryover, you can have borrowing, you can have pooling. There are all these crazy nuances of how allocations work. And, you know, if you don't really get that, then when you start to, you know, design technology for it, it's really hard to scale then into the next jurisdiction because that jurisdiction has such different types of allocations and water management regimes than the one that you're working in. This is frankly an issue where, you know, we as, you know, water rights experts still even really struggle. And, you know, every year we come across, you know, as we start to onboard customers from different areas, we come across really funky water rights that we've never seen before. So this year in Kansas about blew my mind with the level of complexity. So, you know, I just think it's people underestimate how complicated water resources are.
So, Rochelle, are you implying that the U.S. has this crazy quilt of regulations with regards to water? I'm kind of shocked.
I'm sure you've never thought of that before, have you, Will?
No, I've never used the term crazy quilt, though, but, you know, it seems to stick pretty well.
Yeah, yeah.
Seems like that would be a good hashtag.
Oh, Tom, there you go.
Hashtag crazy quilt. Okay.
Maybe this can be, oh, I have an idea, Tom. Maybe this can be the inspiration for what you put in this frame behind you, right? Like you could get some water related quilt going on that you frame.
Nice.
I love it. Yeah, this is the empty frame Rochelle's talking about. Yeah, so I think have it on the wall with Will's hashtag and then have like a mosaic of water images. I love it. I love it. But okay, so moving on.
Oh no, let's beat this one to death.
So let's talk about the role of accelerators, because you guys have previously kind of connected together as well. And Rochelle, you were involved in the Techstars Sustainability Accelerator. So tell us kind of that the role of the accelerator during that particular stage of your company and how it kind of got you to where you are today, and just a kind of more broader comment, and Will, if you will, as well, on you're involved in various accelerators as well.
Yeah, so the participation, so Mammoth participated in the Techstars Sustainability Accelerator, which is based out of Denver, Colorado. So it's pretty fortunate because I'm based here in Denver, Colorado. So even walked to a handful of our interviews in the process, but I actually only applied as a favor to someone at the Nature Conservancy that I knew. I had never heard of Techstars. I thought, well, Mammoth is 5 years old. We're no longer in the need of any kind of help with an accelerator. This is so silly. And he asked me multiple times. And so mostly to just get him to shut up, I decided I was going to apply and humor him. And it ended up being one of the most transformational programs that I've ever participated in. And life's just like that, you know. But yeah, so we, you know, I was excited about it mostly for the partnership with the Nature Conservancy and being able to roll out some pilot projects, and really had underestimated the amount of value that Techstars itself was going to provide. But they are just internationally renowned. They have an incredible network of mentors, Will being among them. So Will was one of our mentors through the program. And, I think that between the mentorship network, the mentors network, and the amount of training that they do of how do you actually start scaling? How do you make sure that your company is making progress, not just making motion? How do you measure your growth? How do you measure your progress? These were tools that, I didn't have walking through the door on our first day, and really feel equipped in a much, in a much better way now to be a good CEO of this company and really help it to execute on its vision.
And you're still speaking to Will after the mentoring, right?
But we
still on a
since,
positive relationship. Oh, this is the first time since
this is the first time, which,
yeah.
I had to be reminded how to spell mammoth again. So,
No, well, we usually do our meetups over a beer. So I think Will owes me a beer for our next one. But we just haven't been able to see each other.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with a martini, but yeah,
of course,
definitely.
So Will, what sort of advice did you give then back then, having worked with numerous, I could say startup, but it was a 5-year-old company at that stage, wasn't it? So
yeah,
we have an old startup, but Will helped us a lot on thinking about strategic partnerships and how we could think about our strategy in the near and long term, and really start to execute on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we haven't spoken, so I have to really try and remember, my sage advice way back when. So I agree with Rochelle. I think the TNC Techstar program is very unique, really powerful, and combines really the attributes of a NGO like TNC with the Techstar platform, which is, really a machine in terms of bringing mentors in, the program in terms of what they're really trying to deliver from the mentors, and also the collective experience of Techstars over multiple years and a global organization. So I found it to be wildly educational for me. It was not a one-way street. I got an enormous amount out of it in terms of really understanding some of the challenges that entrepreneurs face. Obviously some of the market challenges, and then also the rigor of taking a great idea and a great team and a great technology and turning it into something that is of commercial scale. I would say that my advice has always tended to focus on, okay, who can you collaborate with? How do you build an ecosystem around Mammoth? How do you scale as fast as possible? Introductions to, clients of mine that would provide some feedback, but also potentially be a end user of a technology solution. So, I'm really bullish on the TNC Techstar program, and I got a lot out of it. Big fan.
I think it's the ability to create that ecosystem, the ability to open those many different doors that are needed, right? And provide those introductions at a key time when you're growing the business.
Yeah. And, to me, we talk about collective action or aligned action in trying to solve water problems, wicked water problems. And there's no one elegant technology solution. There's no one company that's going to do it, no one industry sector or stakeholder group. So it's, how do you build those unique set of relationships that solve the problem that you're focused on? And, for me, that's incredibly powerful as a way of thinking and strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there was like a lot of crossover too in the way that, we were just able to learn from our cohort.
Mm-hmm.
Mammoth was one of 10 companies that participated in this program, and being able to, have 9 other CEOs that you could chat with and, talk about current issues that you were facing. the odds were that all 9 of them were either had experience in it or were currently going through exactly the same thing. And so we've really been able to keep up that relationship. And, so we have forum every 2 weeks where we get together and, we're able to pick each other's brains. So, there were so many amazing things that came out of that accelerator. But for me, it's largely these relationships that we have through the cohort and the mentors that were the biggest part of the program.
I thought it was also interesting, as a outsider, the relationships that were built between the water companies, your relationship with some of the other folks that are out there and, exchanging information. And, I never got the sense that you viewed each other as competitors. It struck me that you were really, truly in this together and genuinely trying to solve, a range of water problems, which I think is incredibly noble.
Oh yeah. Well, there's that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So.
Good point.
Yeah.
That's a hashtag also, by the way. Tom's on it.
That's a very long hashtag, but yeah, we may have to shorten it. Here's a random question for you, but do you think during the current climate, kind of, obviously you were paired with like-minded companies, given the mentoring, having the doors open, all those things that come when you can meet face to face. How do you think that would happen, in the current climate via telecommunication, without the ability to travel and sit in a room with like-minded people and have that spark that you get? I mean, that's an interesting one to kind of think, if you were to be placed in the accelerator right now, how that might change things moving forward. Because we've talked about it, right? And they say that video conferencing is fantastic for people you have an existing relationship with.
Right.
But to build a rapport with brand new contacts, to build that relationship, it's not as easy, right? Yeah. So I still think you need to bring people around the table together to kind of get those sparks of, would say, banter and kind of human interaction.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of relationship building is not in these structured meetings. I mean, we didn't build our relationships in Techstars during workshops and seminars. We built our relationships, after we left the office at, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night and went over to, the nearest brewery or distillery to grab a drink together. And, that's where a lot of that relationship was built. I mean, I think this is a really tough climate to sort of foster new connections. And it's hard for entrepreneurs too, because the job is already a very lonely one. And I think that, COVID, social distancing, all of these measures have made us even lonelier. I mean, all of us, right? This is not just an entrepreneur's problem, but everybody's problem is that we've lost a lot of our community, a lot of our connection. And that's been really tough on, mental health. And so I don't have a great answer on this, but I think it would be really hard to imagine what an accelerator program like that would look like, in an era like this. And, from my understanding, this is exactly why the Techstars Sustainability Accelerator is delaying its program by a year so that they can have it in person.
Yeah, I think that was a wise move on their part. I mean, it's hard to imagine how you take 3 months of really co-locating and turn it into a virtual experience that delivers as much value as you got out of the last cohort. So, I think it's definitely a challenge, also with fundraising and, selling remotely. It's a tough one.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, Rachel, the kind of one of the final things I want to talk to you about is in the previous videos and materials Mammoth has released with 3M's will, and that is you often credit would you say your parents for the kind of the entrepreneurial inspiration, if you like, right? So kind of as a youngster, kind of seeing the challenges they went through, having to lay off friends and family and kind of going through it. So would you say it's kind of you've always wanted to run a startup and develop it into a business? Has that been kind of this? But
Oh,
you
the
know, some
opposite.
people I speak to, it's always from a child that I've always wanted to do something, always want to have that burning desire to build something. Or do you think I
No,
mean, I know you talked about it earlier, but
I was totally the opposite. I actively resisted entrepreneurship because I saw how hard it was. Man, it
actively resist.
sucks. It sucks running your own business. You know, you're the last to get paid. You work long hours. You never take vacation. I mean, I think we took maybe one vacation that I can remember growing up. And so, you know, otherwise the concern was that the company is going to burn to the ground if you step away for it like a day. And so, you know, I saw how hard that was on my parents. I saw how emotional it was for them when they went through recessions, and, you know, they're in the mortgage industry. And so 2008 in particular was a really hard time for them. And they went from being an office of 15 to just being the two of themselves. And, you know, the people that they worked with really were, you know, our friends and family. And, you know, so I saw how tough that was on them. I knew I didn't want it. I knew that it was not the life for me. So I wanted a 9-to-5 job with salary and benefits, and the ability to go on vacation. But, you know, this apple did not fall far from the tree. So, you know, life had something different in store for me. But yeah, I don't know. I think in part of doing this program with the National Science Foundation through ICOR, I fell in love with the work. Nobody else was doing it. And so it was like, well, I really want to do this. No one else is doing it. I guess I got to do it. And so I guess I'm starting a company. And of course, my mom gives me the hardest time because, you know, I never want, you know, anytime that there was talk about, you know, Rochelle taking over the family business, I was like, no, absolutely not. I want nothing to do with that. And, you know, they're mortgage brokers. So what do? They help people buy and sell real estate. And so my parents just got a kick out of the fact that I help people buy and sell like less secure forms of property rights. So I have a harder version of their business.
Well, you made the analogy to property earlier, right? So there is something in there. How they were connecting buyers and sellers of properties, and you're connecting buyers and sellers of water. So,
oh yeah, but my mom gets a kick out of it that I had to make it that much harder for myself, that I am helping people trade less secure water or less secure property rights.
I'm shocked. Yeah, the road less traveled.
Exactly.
Or the road not traveled.
Right, right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So you wanted this 9-to-5, you know, with a paycheck at the end of the month, with a set holiday, and then you've got this life of running a company. But it's addictive now. I mean, could you go back? Not even go back, but could you, if you had to give it all up and go to a 9-to-5 corporate? I'm sure you would maybe feel like a caged animal going back.
I mean, I love my work. It'd have to be really, I think I'd have to, the company would have to fail for me to go and do something else. It's hard for me to imagine voluntarily giving this up and doing something different. You know, my first moment that I really clearly felt this call around doing work in sustainability was actually in a place that seems very unlikely to think about it. But it was in church, and my pastor at the time was talking about the importance of tithing and of being good stewards with our finances, and to give back to God what God has so generously given to us. And you know, I was sitting in the pew, and it just dawned on me that, oh my goodness, if we are called to be good stewards of what is man-made, our, you know, finances and currency, money, how much more are we supposed to be good stewards of what God has made and upon which all of our wealth is derived in the first place? And so at that moment, I just knew that my career needed to be more about stewardship of natural resources. And so no matter what I do in the future, I mean, my money is on Mammoth growing, moving up to its name, becoming a Mammoth company. I really do want us to have a big impact in water stewardship. And, I think that we've got the vision and the team to do it. But no matter what I do in the future, this is really the space for me, is to be working in a place where, we are thinking about future generations and making sure that, we're able to pass on, our livelihoods and, give this planet to the next generations in a way that it was even better than how it was handed off to us.
Amazing. It sounds as if you found the purpose. We often talk about this, right?
Right.
As Simon Sinek talks about, your why, if you can describe it, your kind of raison d'etre to wake up in the morning, that you've kind of found. And I guess with agriculture, water taking up such a, excuse the word, mammoth quantity of water, that any kind of improvements you can make on that eventually frees up water for other uses as well, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this is about, what we're really after here is being able to take a big data approach to, understanding water and conservation, so that we can, we're collecting high density, high resolution water data, so that we can say with statistical power what things are working and what's not working, so that we can really start to scale this up. A lot of people want to put money and support projects that are about water sustainability, but the problem is nobody has the data to back it right now. And so this is really where we're coming in, is to be able to provide the data to say, these are the practices, these are the technologies that are working, these are the growers that are doing a really great job, and these are the folks that we can learn from, and then take all of those lessons and really be able to scale it in a cost-effective manner, because we got to do this really fast. And if we need to do it fast, we got to learn really quickly from what the data is telling us. So this is really where I think that, yes, our why is around stewardship. It's around, being able to pass on livelihoods to, our kids and grandkids. And, our early adopters really do share that why too. They're all about being able to pass on the farm to their kids and grandkids as well.
So it's their legacy, isn't it? So, sorry, Will.
Rochelle, this is a little bit of a plug and probably a longer conversation over beer, but you would seem to be a key component of corporate water stewardship programs then, which goes back to how do you scale your business and who pays? Well, maybe corporations that have an ag supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think that there are, if we really want to align ag profitability with water stewardship, we've got to give growers the financial tools and incentives to be able to do that. So that means, better pricing, from these corporations. It means, better and preferred contracts. It means better terms on their loans. It means better insurance offers as well, and really unlocking capital so that they can start to invest in water savings technologies and practices as well. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that both, corporate sustainability programs and water managers need to be looking at this data and learning from it as well.
And actually, Will, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that was a really nice segue to our next guest, actually.
Come on, Tom, we're unscripted.
It's like telekinesis, right? You just kind of went. But before we plug the next episode, Will, did you manage to spot where the company mascot is hiding in Rachel's apartment? I know we talk about gamification of data, but
no, I cannot find it. And can you find out where the cat is in my background, by the way, also? Or no,
well, we'll leave that.
No, where is it?
Oh,
not the cat. Your logo.
Up there, the mammoth. You see it? It's sitting above the sink.
I was looking at your microwave and stove for some reason, not at the window. So
It's normally sitting on the couch, but it got moved. I wanted to make it a little bit harder on the audience so that they really paid attention.
All right.
Kind of forget where's Waldo. It's where's Wooly, right? The mammoth. But anyway, Richael, thank you so much for joining us. It's been we knew it would be it's been a ride, and we've enjoyed the conversation with you and finding out more about water and agriculture and what you're doing in terms of disrupting the model on water trading. So yeah, thanks so much for your time. And Will, nice little plug into water stewardship, because our guest coming up is David Grant, who is the Sustainability Director for Global Water Stewardship at PepsiCo. So keep an eye out for that in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, Will, final comments from you before we close up.
You know, yeah, entrepreneurs will change how we think about water and manage water. So I'm, really excited about what Richelle's doing and the impact. So more of the same, not the same of what we're doing, status quo. It's more of the same of what you're doing. So
thanks, Will. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, yeah, Richelle, congratulations on the Mammoth Water's progress so far. And yeah, thanks for joining the stream. And yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Talk soon.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.